Good day, friends. So, today we are going to see 1.2 diversity in the living world. Like if you look around yourself, there are many kind of species around you. Like for example, you can see plants, animals, dogs, cats, small insects, bees, houseflies, everything are different species which are around you. So in case you, instead of seeing in one room or in one park, take for example, you see the species or count the species in two parks. So obviously the number of species will increase, right? So that is what they're telling in the first paragraph. So the next thing that they are saying is, mm, each different kind of plant or animal or organism that you see represents a species. So if you see a money plant, it's a different species. If you see an ant, it's a different species. If you see a housefly, it's a different species. So likewise, in on earth there are totally 1.7 million species. Okay, so this is important. There are 1.7 to 1.8 million species. So the different kind of species that exist on our earth is called biodiversity. So biodiversity is otherwise known as the number or type of organism present on earth. Okay, so the next thing is, when even though even when you identify a park and find few species, the next time when you go to the same park and start identifying species, you will find a lot more. Like no matter how much, the moment you start you know re-identifying a place, you find more and more number of species. So there are millions of plants and animal species on earth. like but you see, like every plant and every animal, we all know it by our local names. Okay, so for example, what do I mean by local names? Like we say money plant, and we call brinjal as brinjal, and whereas some parts of the world call brinjal as eggplant, so we call it brinjal. They, when you go and ask that, like give me brinjal, they wouldn't know what brinjal is. So if I go and ask in a local shop here, obviously they won't know what an eggplant is. So that's what. So you have to have a common name for any species that we see. Okay. So we have to standardize the name of living organisms. So it has to have one name which is international, known internationally. No matter which part of the world you go, you have to know the, like, when you tell that biological name, everyone will know. So that is called the biological name. So this thing, see this, obviously nomenclature or naming is only possible when organism is described correctly and we know to what organism the name is attached to. So, what is nomenclature? Nomenclature is nothing but naming the living organisms. Okay, nomenclature means naming. So when we have to name a particular living organism, you have to know what the organism is, and you have to know what that organism is connected to. Okay, for example, like if you take Homo sapiens and Homo erectus, you have to know, like Homo erectus and Homo sapiens are connected. So they obviously give the same genus name, same generic name, that is Homo, and they only change the species name, like Homo erectus in that case and Homo sapiens in our case. So that is what they're saying. And for plants, who fixes the principles and criteria? The organization which fixes the principles and criteria for naming plants is International Code of Botanical Nomenclature, ICBN. And how are animals named? Animal taxonomists have evolved International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. So this is very important. International Code for Botanical Nomenclature and International Code for Zoological Nomenclature. Also, don't forget, please read out all the points that I have highlighted. The scientist name ensure to each organism has the scientific names ensure that each organism has only one name. So no matter which part of the world you go and tell that one name, they will know. Like for example, if you go to some part of some part of India where they don't know English. You go tell them, like for example, the scientists there won't know English, and if you go tell them mango, they won't know what mango is. Maybe he calls it with some other name. So when you go and tell him like it's Mangifera indica, he will know that it is mango because that is a biological name which is same throughout the world. Okay, so whenever you see biologists always universally accepted principles to provide scientific names to known organisms. So even the biological names, there is no two organism which has the same name, because when you go if brinjal is named as Mangifera indica and also mango is named as Mangifera indica, there will be a clash, right? So if I come and tell you I want Mangifera indica, you'll be wondering whether I want brinjal or I want mango. So every time a particular species will have only one biological name. That is very important. And every biological name is having two parts. One is generic name and the second one is specific epithet. What is generic name? Generic name is nothing but the genus, and specific epithet is nothing but the species. So since a biological name has two names respectively, two parts respectively, it is known as binomial nomenclature. So each name has two components, generic name and specific epithet. This system of providing a name with two components is called binomial nomenclature. Binomial nomenclature. This binomial nomenclature was given by Carolus Linnaeus. So this is very important. So binomial nomenclature was given by Carolus Linnaeus. The naming system has two word format was found convenient. So you see it was found convenient for every scientist and even the common people. So now take for example mango. Mango is what is the name of biological name of mango which I told you just now? It is Mangifera indica. So in Mangifera is the genus while indica is the species. So the universal rules for nomenclature are very very important. You will get questions from this thing. So what is the universal rules? So the biological names are generally Latin are written in italic. So generally they are in Latin, or else they are Latinized or derived from the Latin language. And whenever they are written in italics. You know what italics is? It is that slanting font. So they are written in italics. The first word in the biological name is the genus, and the second word in the biological name is the specific epithet. So when you write these biological name with your hand, when they are handwritten, they have to be underlined separately. Like you have to underline the genus and the species name separately, or when it is printed in textbooks, they have to print it in italics. See here, like for example, see the Mangifera indica written here. It is written in a slanting font, right? So this is called italics. And then why are they printed in italics? Because to indicate their Latin origin, to tell people, to convey to people that they are, you know, uh, originated from the Latin language. So whenever you write the genus name, it should always start with a capital letter, which is very important. It should always start with a capital letter. And whenever you write a species name, it should always start with a small letter. Like see genus name Mangifera, M starts with a capital letter, and Indica is the species name, I starts with a small letter. And if we write it in hand, like if we write Mangifera Indica in hand, by it when it is handwritten, we should underline it separately. So these are the universal rules for binomial nomenclature. So now the name of the author appears after the specific epithet at the end of the biological name and is written in an abbreviated form. So whoever is the author of that name, his name will be written at the end like this: Mangifera indica Lin. The Lin will be abbreviated and written at the end. What is Lin? Carolus Linnaeus. He is the author. So it will be given in the end as Mangifera indica Lin. So it indicates that species was first described by Linnaeus. Since it's nearly impossible to study all living organism, it is necessary to devise some means of to make this possible. This process is called classification. What is classification? The process by which anything is grouped into convenient categories based on some easily observable characters. What is classification? When you group different organisms based on some observable characters, like if you take for example dogs, cats, cheetah, you can say okay, uh, and when wait, easy example is when you take when you see bird organisms with wings, organisms with four legs, and organisms with six legs. You can just divide them like these are birds. So organisms which has wings, they are called birds, and we categorize them separately, we group them separately, and we group organisms with four legs separately, and we group organisms with six legs separately. So that is what they're telling here: the process by which anything is grouped into convenient categories based on some easily observable characters. So we recognize groups such as plants, animals, dogs, cats. Okay, the moment we see them, the moment you see a dog, you obviously think of a dog. Do you think of cat? No, right? So when you think of Alsatian, what do you think of? Yes, you think of an Alsatian dog. You don't think of a cat again. So when I say mammal, what are mammals? Mammals are nothing but what are mammals? Mammals are nothing but which have external ear and body hair. So when an organism has external ear and body hair, these are called mammals. So whenever I tell you mammals, you obviously think of an organism which has external ear and body hair. So likewise, if I say wheat plant, you obviously think of a wheat plant and you don't think of a dog. So see, we have categorized it in separate groups so that no matter which organism I say, you easily group them into the particular organism. So the scientific term for categories is taxa. There are different categories. So each category is called a taxa. Like for example, if you say there are three categories, all the three categories, dogs, cats, mammals, animals, everything are different, but everything belongs to different category. No matter which category they belong, that category, the term the term taxa is used. Okay, so recognize here you must recognize that taxa can indicate categories at different level. Plants also form a taxa. Wheat is also a taxa. Animal, mammal, dog are all taxas. Okay, we know that dog is a mammal. Mammals are animals. So therefore, animal, mammal, dog, everything represent different taxa at different level. If you don't understand at this point, the further subtopic you will understand it clearly because it's given more elaborately. Okay, so don't worry, friends, if we can learn it more elaborately in the next subtopic. So based on the characteristic, all organisms can be classified into different taxa, right? What is different taxa? Based on the categories, all living organisms can be classified into different categories. So based on the characteristic, different categories or taxa. So instead of categories, what do we call it? We call it taxa. So this process is called taxonomy. So for taxonomy, external and internal structure along with cell structure, development process and ecological information of organisms are essential. Okay. So what are essential? Cell structure, external structure, development process, ecological information of organisms are essential and form the basis of modern taxonomic studies. Here, categorization, identification, classification, nomenclature are the process that are basic to taxonomy. This is important. You see, what is the basis of taxonomy? So you have to remember all these points. Categorization, identification, classification, nomenclature are all the processes that are basic to taxonomy. So taxonomy is not something new. We have always been interested in knowing more and more of various kinds of organisms. Okay, human beings have always been curious, and they have always needed to find food, clothing, shelter. So the earliest classifications were based on uses of various organisms. So early man, how do they classify organisms? So they classified on the basis of uses, whether they use this animal skin for clothing, or whether they use that animal for eating, or whether they use this plant for their shelter, or whether they use that plant for their food. Based on the uses, they used to classify living organisms. But now we have become more knowledgeable, we have more missionaries and stuff, so we have changed our perspective. Okay. What then? Human beings were since long not only interested in knowing more about different kind, but they and all and their diversity, but also relationship among them. So, uh, we were not only interested in knowing about the organism, but we were also interested in knowing how they were related to each other. So this is called systematics. What is systematics? Systematics is relationship among different type of organism. This is important. You have to learn what is systematics. Systematics is relationship among different type of organism. So the word systematic is derived from Latin word systema. The word systematics is derived from the Latin word systema, which means systematic arrangement of organisms. So what is systematics? Relationship among different types of organism is called systematics. From which word was systematics derived? It was derived from the word systema. It is a Latin word. So what does systema mean? Systema means systematic arrangement of organism. Linnaeus used Systema Naturae as the title of his first publication. This is very, very important. What was Carolus Linnaeus' first publication? It was Systema Naturae. Systema Naturae was his first title of publication. The scope of systematics was later enlarged to include identification, nomenclature, classification. First, we identify a plant or an organism for that matter, and then we name it, and then we classify and put it in the particular category or taxa where it belongs. So, this is called identification, nomenclature, and classification. This is the scope of systematics. So systematics take into account evolutionary relationship between organisms. So what is systematics? I told you systematics is the relationship between different type of organism. So it also means that systematic also takes evolutionary relationship between organism. What is evolutionary relationship? Evolutionary relationship means like we were evolved from the early man. For example, Ramapithecus, Australopithecus, Homo erectus, Homo various Neanderthal man, Australopithecus, we were evolved from all of them. So when we study about systematics, we also take into account evolutionary relationship. Evolutionary relationship means taking into account our ancestral species and studying the systematics of that particular species. So let's end our class here. Once you have listened to this lecture, please go and do the MCQ from any book from the subtopic 1.2. Let's meet tomorrow for the next subtopic 1.3. Thank you, friends. Bye bye.